We're streaming live now. We're here on the Vision Train, and we are together with, let's make sure we can find it first.
I found it. We are streaming.
Yay! You never know if these things are going to work out. And I'm so excited though when it does. And we're in for a real treat today. My name is Amanda Sage, and I am here on the Vision Train. We've been going through for 3.5 years on the same call. You're welcome to join us anytime. And we're here with Veronica Anderson, who's going to be giving a lecture today on deep design. And this is going to illustrate her story and the work that she does and has put together for this beautiful journey with the Vitra Academy this fall. We'll be doing 3 different courses, or they're one session classes that you can come to all 3. You can come to one. It's going to be super empowering, I would say, and enriching for whatever creative work that you're doing in the world. And yeah, put it on your calendar, check it out. I'm sure she'll tell us a little bit more about that, but this is an opportunity to get to know her a little bit better and her tools and what she is drawing from, which is a rich well of experience and references. So I'm really looking forward to this today. Thank you for being here with us, Veronica, and everybody else joining us on the train. Come hop on board if you like, or just join in through the live stream.
Thank you so much. So what do you think, Amanda? Are we ready to dive in?
I think it's time. Let's go.
Amazing.
Drive that train. Choo-choo.
Yes, you do. What an honor. I feel so surrounded and supported by love from this community. It is always a joy to gather here on the Vision Train. It's so good to see so many friends and colleagues here now. Thank you. Thank you all. Diane, Stephen, Cassie, Talita, Michelle. It's really wonderful to connect and share about this work of deep design that I have been cultivating. And let's dive in. Let me go ahead and get started. Thank you for your patience as I get this set up in the most beautiful full screen way possible.
Patience is a virtue.
I always used to say patience is a virtue, but it's not one of mine. But recently I feel like I've grown enough to be able to own patience in my vocabulary. It just
a big part. What's happening? We got to.
It keeps not going full screen. It keeps wanting to keep the title bar there.
We did a little tech check before, but y'all know how that goes.
It was full screen when we checked.
Well, I'll take this moment until you give me the thumbs up to also let y'all know that we, with the Vision Train Academy of Art, is the Vitra Academy, and we are starting actually our first class series tomorrow. I am doing a masterclass review Saturday morning, and you're still welcome to jump in and get a community observer ticket. There's so much to learn in these classes. We also have 2 deep dive workshops that are going to be happening, and that will be in October, yes, with Christina Lazar, and then we have another one in November with Seth McMahon. We also have some lecture series, Portal to the New Earth with Harlan. And yeah, it's gonna be a juicy fall here. Lots to explore and to practice, to refine your skills and to deepen the community connection also through Vitra and the Vision Train. And yeah, we're really looking forward to this. I'm excited for actually not tomorrow. I'm getting ahead of myself. It's Saturday is my first masterclass reviews, and I'll be reviewing some students' work, and I'll also be reviewing some of my own work and showing you like how I've solved problems along the way. That's really what I'm interested in getting into. And yeah, because that's the constant thing every day. Every day we are set up with a new set of challenges that we need to face. And how are we going to face those? You know, that's something that we need to build our tool set for. So I think Veronica's given me a thumbs up that everything's good to go for the presentation. So here we go into the deep design lecture with Veronica Anderson. Take it away, darling.
Thanks, love. So, friends, let us deepen into this topic of deep design. And I'd love to hear in the chat, who has heard this phrase before? Just drop in there, me, or if it's familiar, but you're not sure where, just let us know. Is deep design something that you're familiar with? I know a few of you are, and that's really exciting. This practice of inner and outer architecture is something that I've been cultivating through my training as an architect, and also through my work as a coach and through the practice of mindfulness coaching. So this is the inner component and the outer. So the first slide that you saw is sort of the after of the before, which you can see on the right. And this is a temple that I built here in Costa Rica, where I live. I'm calling in from the land of the Wetar people in the Central Valley in San Jose. We actually built this temple with their permission and assistance. They were so delighted that we took the time to ask for their permission to create this temple in our community. And I'll be sharing about that journey, what it was like to actually build a physical work of architecture. And through that process, I was able to apply the over a decade's worth of Zen training, which I had gathered studying mindfulness with the Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh. And so this picture on the left is focusing us in on the inner architecture that it takes to create a world that works for all of life, or as I like to say, to build a world that loves itself. And this visioning of physical spaces is what I do as an architect, but all of us are building the world every day as we move through it. And so this practice of deep design is something that each and every one of us can inhabit. And each of us are designers who affect the world around us, whether it's through architecture or through painting or through user experience design, or many, many other things like being a parent or a writer or working as a project manager. All of these different disciplines involve design at some level. And if we are here, it's likely that we are visionaries who vision a world that is life-affirming, just, equitable, inclusive, and loving and peaceful. So my hope is that this journey that we're about to go on together will help you apply some of the inner architecture that you have probably been developing through your own personal development journey, whether it's been practicing yoga or meditation or learning about mindfulness or something else. Often we relegate these things to the spiritual realm, but what I've been able to do is apply that to my work as a professional and in a creative capacity. And I hope that will inspire you and motivate you to bring out into the world maybe some things that might have been hiding in the spiritual closet for you. And perhaps you can find a way to be a leader and a change maker from this place of inner resilience. So today I'm going to talk about the physical temples that I've built. Regenerative community master planning is something that I've done as an architect as well. And I'll give an example of what that has looked like. And I've also been trained as a geodesigner, and that's the application of geospatial technology to design. And so I'll be sharing an example of a climate tech solution that I've also cultivated. So let's dive in deeper. And I'd like to start with mindfulness. So in that last photo, I was holding this bell, and this is a practice that I learned from my teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh. It comes from the Zen tradition, and it's a practice of deep listening. And so when we listen deeply, we're able to come into direct relationship with the world around us. And in doing so, we realize that we're actually participating in the world. We're not just observing what's happening outside of us. Quantum physics teaches us and confirms what spiritual sciences have taught us for generations, that we are directly affecting what we're observing. So I'd like to practice that as we get started here. And as a presenter, it's always nice to have a moment of breath before we dive in deeply. And hopefully as a listener, you can find a space just to be with your breath here. This will be a very, very short practice of mindfulness, but I hope it will bring us into a little bit more coherence so that we can connect more deeply with the subject. So let's just check in with our breath and our bodies. I invite you to notice your feet. Notice the space inside your feet, whether it's touching the floor, you might be driving or walking. Wherever you are, just checking in with your body, doing what it takes to come more fully present, scanning, perhaps placing a loving hand anywhere you might find tension. And then turning more closely towards the breath, noticing the inhalations and exhalations as they come naturally. Just gifting yourself this moment to pause whatever you're doing and notice your breath. And I'll invite this bell in a moment, and the only thing to do is breathe. Just breathe and be, receiving the sound deeply without judgment. Simple awareness. Checking in again with your body. Take a moment to send a smile to your body, a sense of calm. If you're moving on with your day, from this moment of pause. Take a second and let us know in the chat what it was like for you to take those moments to pause and be present. If you're able to, I'd love it if everyone could leave a short note in the chat about what it was like for you to slow down right now. Sometimes it can be really hard. We can feel like we don't have enough time to pause. And it can be a massive challenge to stop what we're doing if we're in a very mental headspace and we're rushing. Tiffany says it was a nice little rest. That word rest is so key. Diane felt like it was centering to slow down, especially amongst community. Yes, that is the power of Sangha. That's the word for the spiritual family that can support us, Diane. Thank you for reminding us of that. And Amanda says, it reminds me that this is the true source. Exactly. That there is this creative power that lives in us. And when we slow down and we come out of our mental busyness and our rushing and we rest into that source, we are rejuvenated, we are regenerated. And that for me is the true essence of regenerative design. And so I'm loving that our community here understands that and that we can be held in this understanding as we learn how to share that more with the world. Because our world really needs our help. On the screen, I have this graffiti from somewhere in Berlin where a man is consuming trees and excreting homes that aren't inspiring at all. They're just these ticky-tacky little boxes. And we have this paradigm in the world nowadays where it's humans versus nature. We don't have this sense of connection to nature many times. And Indigenous wisdom is teaching us to reclaim and recenter the earth and her wisdom. But we are very much at the leading edge of consciousness in this work where we are able to understand ourselves as part of nature. And mindfulness can help us to do that. I see it very much as a trauma response that humanity is in this rushing, trying to overcome nature and our base instincts. But what if we could build with nature? What if we could design with nature's intelligence? How would it look? What would it feel like? So that has been my exploration. And here we're seeing Machu Picchu, a civilization, a city that was built by a civilization directly focused on nature and reverence of the cycles. And this phrase really has guided me as an artist, is that architects are the poets of culture. And what that means is that first we design our buildings and then they design us. And that's something that Winston Churchill is known for bringing into the mainstream and popularizing. But oftentimes we take for granted that our cities and our houses and our towns are constructed in a certain way. We don't think about the materials that are used, the shapes that are used. And ultimately, if we want to think outside of the box as a society, we want to create a totally new paradigm of living, which is not consumerist, it's not colonial, it's not extractionary, but is life affirming. How can we do that when we live inside of boxes? That has been my inquiry as a designer, as an architect. And this responsibility that I have felt as an architect within my profession is one of leading culture and saying, well, these materials that we're using are not renewable. They're not regenerative. Can we use natural ones? These forms, these shapes are not life affirming. They don't center the soft curves of my human body. They're hard and unforgiving. And this disconnection from everything that is natural and true is not serving my mental health or my emotional health or my spiritual well-being. So how can we bring green into cities? How can we reconnect with the rivers that originally designed and defined our urban landscapes? These are the questions that I ask as an architect. And so this project here in Ciudad Colón at the Julia and David White Artist Colony is an example of that inquiry coming into manifestation. I'm going to walk us through this process that took 2 years to complete of building a space for contemplation and connection with nature here in the Central Valley of Costa Rica. And the title of this section is Land Listening, because as an architect, I see my job to be more about channeling Gaia and the earth. I don't want to project my human definition of what should be on the land. I want something to grow up out of the land through me and my team that is evoking the innate wisdom and intelligence of nature. So this is a view of the site before we built anything, and you can see a bench up close. And this is the view that we seeded the whole design around. We wanted this space, which looks fairly empty and barren now, to become a garden that folks could explore and adventure through and ultimately arrive at a space of sanctuary. And you'll see a bench further down the hill. And that is the site that we chose for the building. And I mentioned the Wetar people earlier, and these are the original inhabitants of the land that we worked on. And these are their temples. And we went, this is just 15 minutes up the road from the colony where I live and where we built this temple. And we went to ask permission. We went to the original inhabitants of this valley who have been, I don't want to say marginalized, but they did not cede this territory. It wasn't a fair deal. And so we wanted to acknowledge the way that these ancestors had taken care of this land for centuries, for generations, and also to learn from the people who came before us. And so we went and we prayed in the first temple on the left, and we sat in this larger temple that's in the middle and on the right, and we listened to the stories of the elder who keeps this space as an educational center, and understood the cosmology, how this architecture reflects the cosmology of the people who live there, and helped and went back in time to a moment when architecture was deeply inherently connected to the beliefs and the culture of the people who built it, and really unwound ourselves from this commercial capitalist idea of development. And so this is when Gaia Tika was born. This sculpture in the center really expresses the presence of the Great Mother archetype that we wanted this space to evoke as a way. The intention was to feel an embrace as one walked into the space. So first we created this platform on the left, which is the viewing platform of the space. And then we laid it out down on the right. And these are some sketches that, and a model that I built as a way of exploring the way of integrating with the landscape. And you can see this platform in the middle is protruding from, but embedded within the slope of the land. And we are an artist colony, so we wanted this to be a space where people could gather and share their music, their poetry, their theater. And also, it was important to us to bring in the elements. So we created a fire pit space that was central, that would be part of the experience. And we designed these benches that were curving, and the intention was to make them out of cob, which is a natural building material. In the end, we weren't able to fulfill that part of the vision. I see your question here, Cassie, and it's a very good one. What does tica mean in Gaia Tica? So Costa Ricans, in Spanish, you could call them costarricenses, but that's a very long way of saying Costa Rican. So they shorten it to tico or tica, the O for masculine and the A for feminine. So this is, Gaia Tica is a feminine Costa Rican Gaia. Costa Rican Gaia is the name of this space. So once the design was made, this was kind of in the middle of COVID, we got our building team together and we started to lay out where the foundations would go. And you can see that this terrain was very steep. So we had a lot of earth to move. And part of the building process was this ceremonial seeding of the intention of this holistic vision and cosmology that we learned from our indigenous neighbors. They taught us to place grass, seeds, and bones beneath the foundation of the temple to embed this meaning of birth, life, and death into the space. So this is, you can see the metal pieces, that's the rebar that holds the concrete floor together. And on top of this, we poured the floor of the space. And it came together in August of 2020, just a few months later. And we were only able to access concrete block, which is not my favorite material. Concrete is made with lime, which is not a renewable resource. We have a limited amount of lime on the planet. So plus there's off-gassing, which happens with concrete, although this is an open space, so that wasn't so much my concern. But this is a good example of the compromises that we have to make nowadays as we're making this transition from our extractive economy to a regenerative economy. One of the problems that we faced with this project is the lack of skilled labor for natural building techniques. So there's a really massive need for education and skill building when it comes to this transition. Not to mention the supply chain wasn't set up for us to be able to access the materials that we needed in order to build with the regenerative, renewable intention that we had. One thing that we were able to do was to source these wooden pillars, these beams and posts from a nearby farm. So these are branches from trees that were shading crops that needed to be trimmed. And so we went and we harvested these branches and repurposed them. And a magical thing happened. The space is designed as a circle because we wanted there to be an embrace, an experience of entering a womb as you came down the hill and into the space, like one was being birthed. And there's only one right angle in the building because right angles are not common in nature. We only find them in crystalline geometries, in life forms, mineral life forms that have been grown over eons. So they are a very sort of precious design element. And when we harvested the branches to create the beams for this circle that you can see here at the top, we were lucky that they were curved. And so we actually cut the branch and it flayed open like a set of wings. And then we cut those again, and we had 4 parts of a circle, which we were able to then connect with 2 more members. And this circle emerged, which was so poetic for me to witness, because this space to me really speaks of humanity's role in repairing the sacred hoop of life, which is something that the North American Indians are really adamant about, that the human's role in the web of life is to care for and mend the circle, the hoop, the wheel of life. So we finished this after the rainy season, the next spring, March 2021. And the tree that you see over on the right actually bloomed 3 days before the inauguration ceremony. And to me, that was such an affirmation of the relationship that we had built with the land as we were going through this process with reverence, with respect, with great care. I was speaking to the spirits of this land and I was saying, have no fear. This is something that we're doing to celebrate and honor you. And I could tune in through my practice as a priestess of channeling the spirit of this land. I could feel its fear. And I've felt this before many times on development sites where earth movers come in and extraction begins to happen and earth is moved. The spirits of the land are just like cells in the body. When there's a cut made, an incision in the body, the cells react, they respond. And it's a immune response. And so we can actually create geopathic stress by intervening in the earth and the land if we're not mindful of the way that we're doing it. And so for me, this tree blooming was a symbol of the acceptance that was happening through this intervention. So I'll share now a video so that you can experience the space.
You will travel, no matter where you will venture. Your journey is true, because your journey becomes a great experience of love, which you navigate from your heart.
So hopefully you're feeling connected to this place and the beautiful work of art that was created by so many people. And for example, these stained glass artists are just true geniuses with their crafts. And yeah, I feel very honored to have been part of this process here. And beyond being a beautiful work of art, this has affected the culture of the place where we live, because now there's a common space that people can gather. We celebrated a member of this community's 85th birthday in the space when before there was no common area. And so this project also speaks to the importance of what's known as the third space, the space between work and home, something that's a neutral common ground where we can gather and spend time just being human and sharing. The Vision Train is actually a great example of a third space where people can gather and come and exchange ideas. So feel free to share your questions in the chat as we're going. I'm going to take us up a level now to the community scale. So we've been looking at the building scale. We're going to go to the community, and next after that, we'll go to the global scale. And my hope is that you'll be able to follow this thread with me of how our inner state, our inner connection and reverence to the land actually affects the external architecture, the things that we're building and designing. And in doing so, empower you as an artist, as a visionary, as a creator, to really hone in on that inner sense of resilience and empowerment, knowing that you can project something powerful into the world. So this is the community Diamante Luz, and they're an intentional community focusing on regeneration here in Costa Rica. They're just a little bit south in what's known as the Diamante Valley. And this is a really beautiful example of the regenerative community development movement that's happening around the world right now. There's a reverence for the land and an intention to weave people together as community who share values like regeneration and reciprocity and right relationship. So I went there with my colleague, Alex Alden, who's the founder of Entelechy Studio. And we facilitated a 7-day deep dive to help this community go from camping to building. So they live on the land, and you can see they're starting to build these camping platforms, but they have so much land that they want to develop into actual homes and an educational demonstration center, but they weren't sure how to do it, how to go about it. And so that was what Alex and I went there to support. And this is the process that we worked through. First, what happens in communities is there's often a lot of unconscious dross, a lot of muck and yuck and emotional mess, we could call it, that just makes things sticky. It's hard to live in community, and things come up, and we need to work through those things in order to really get into a clear space of creation. So we started with catharsis, and that was a really beautiful process of moving through fears, of making amends, of really coming into right relationship by moving the energy within the community. And then we focused on the meat of the journey, which was about creation. We walked the land, we looked at the different building sites, we brainstormed about the different needs and intentions and created a shared identity for the community to come together around. And then finally, we burned it all. We said, this was great, this was beautiful, it was an important seed, and now we're going to detach from what we've created, because this is a cycle. This is a cyclical process. And so you can see this photo is the regeneration tetrad, where first we looked at the potentials for the community and then the goals, and we created one common aim. And then we looked at different instruments for doing this. And this is a process that's been pioneered by Regenesis, the Regenesis Institute. This regeneration tetrad is their gift to the world. And so this community's aim is about remembering oneness. And they had some really beautiful goals of being role models of authentic imperfection, locally and globally, of being a nest where people could expand, and leaving a trace, going and flipping this idea of not leaving a trace. But their goals were to create enough benefit for the land and the community around them. And then the instruments are these different buildings, like a welcome center, which is also a community hub, a living art center, a learning laboratory, those are the visible instruments that we developed, but we also developed invisible instruments. And so this is a part of deep design, is looking at how the external architecture has visible and invisible components. This apprentice mentor network was an essential component to making their visions come true, as well as a ritual of celebration and different sociocracy agreements and structures. So here you can see how the invisible and visible architecture worked together. And this community is still alive today. One of the things that we did was we assigned 2 different members of the community to each corner of this Merkaba, this star here. And then the different community members would work in these duos to establish a mentor network, to begin designing the culture center, for example. And we have another video here of the experience of deep design. So we had this inner architecture.
Now send your awareness to the core of the earth, the heart of Gaia,
where we meditated together and tuned into our connection with the
send your awareness there,
and then we walked around the site together,
affirming I am loving awareness.
From this place of loving awareness. And we listened.
See if you can sense a response from Gaia. She knows you're here with her.
We built a relationship with the site.
And that is all she requests.
What we're trying to do is work with what's already here and amplify it, because it's a lot easier. Just like in permaculture, when you put unnative species or things together that don't work together, you have to work harder. We're working with the nature of this place. So I want you to notice how all of us have gathered here even before I started talking. This is a natural place of pause and reflection. Everybody who came to this zone right here became quiet and focused on their task. I noticed that you were writing, thinking, feeling, versus when we were on the slope over there, we were disconnected, we were a little confused, and the energy was separated. So we can think about maybe over there is a space for individual work as a one person, and maybe here is like a coming together place where we want to share this moment of pause. The words I wrote are gather, pause, and nook. We're nestled under this hill. It feels a little bit enclosed, and when I look this way, I feel like I'm flying. There's this expansive but closed place. And this is something that in my designer eye starts to create ideas. All right, but I'm first open to the unique potential of the place. And then I start to think about what that could become. So that's the process that I'm sharing with all of you today. And I hope that we can continue to practice this together.
So who has ever participated in a design project like that? This is a totally different way of designing. Usually what happens is somebody with money comes up with an idea, they buy land, and then they place that project on the land. So we're flipping the process on its head, and we are using our relationship to the earth to develop what's coming through us as her. And so this is how we can center life through the process, rather than centering our mind and our intellect and our ideas about how to make profit. This is a different way of working with the land. And so you can see here everybody from this journey presenting their own map of how the community could look. This is a feelings map where they got to be the voice of Gaia. They got to be the voice of the earth in the design process. And then that's at the bottom right, our burning ceremony, where we released these ideas and surrendered to the natural growth process that was going to take place. And this community actually, I went back at the beginning of this year, and they have become a community hub for the other communities around them by hosting Taco Tuesdays. And so there's a drum circle and a organic vegan meal every single Tuesday night. And it's a place for gathering and coming together and growing in resiliency as a community. So we're moving into the final segment here, and I'd like to draw our awareness to this concept of biomimicry. And you can see this murmuration taking place on the upper right-hand corner of the screen, which reminds us that nature has this inherent intuitive way of working as a hive mind, this mycelial network, this innate capacity to collaborate and work towards a common goal exists within nature. On some level, it exists within us. All of your cells have organically self-organized into organs which harmoniously create life effortlessly. So how can we mimic nature? That's what biomimicry is about, and learn how to do this ourselves at a global scale. As a human collective, can we become a hive? So Stephen was actually mentioning this in the chat earlier. He says, I feel an influence in organic architecture that is biophilic and biomimetic. Biophilic is another great word. Philia means love. So biophilia is the love of nature. And absolutely, that is what we're doing here, is we're demonstrating our love for nature. And by mimicking nature's way of designing. So this third project that I'll share today is Home Dash, and home stands for Heartbeat of Mother Earth. And it's a dashboard for visualizing the heartbeat of Mother Earth. And this is an application which serves as a planetary operating system to support land listening at a global scale. So this global sense making of how's Earth doing? How is her heart? How is her health? It's like a Fitbit for Mother Earth. And so this is based on my training in geodesign, geo being geography and design. So this is design based on geography. And often it's used at a regional scale. For example, if we want to build a highway and we don't want to cut through important wetlands, we need maps and geospatial data to help us understand exactly where to cut the highway to have the least impact. That's in the best case scenario. If we're able to use geodesign, we're already at the leading edge of design here. This is not the status quo. What's key to understanding geodesign is that we're using technology and science. This is the top and left circles here, in order to design better with the people of the place. And when I say people, I don't just mean humans. I actually mean plants, animals, minerals, and humans. And all of these spheres come together in the geodesign process. And Home Dash is based on using bioregional wisdom along with citizen science to achieve our regenerative goals and channel social impact investment. So this is a project that I've been working on for the last 2 years or so. And here we can see a lot of different inspiring examples coming together. This is sort of like a mood board that I put together, which brings together the idea of planetary boundaries. You might have seen that documentary on Netflix, and helps us to visualize this full spectrum of regenerative development, from health to governance, to the arts, to spirituality, to the science, to relationships, to justice, all of it in one place. So this is what one might feel like standing in front of Home Dash or using it as an application on your phone, having this overview. And this is a mock-up based on some real images from the prototype of this globe that one can interact with and understand things like poverty, water scarcity, armed conflict. And so the vision is to achieve this synchronization around the globe of bringing together our awareness of problems and solutions in order to tell a story of our collective coherence. So this is something that Paul Hawken's book, Blessed Unrest, inspired in me. This idea that there is a global movement of people who are caring for the earth, taking care of social justice issues, are working to preserve and amplify Indigenous wisdom and voices. And so healing this relationship between humanity and nature by connecting us at a global scale, we recognize that we're all interconnected. That's something that COVID reminded us of as we looked at the way that this pandemic crisis brought together people from nations around the world. And so we're acknowledging that there are boundaries which are being broken. The level of carbon that's being output at a global scale is completely unsustainable, that the disappearance of biodiverse species is happening at a catastrophic, almost critical rate, to the point of being a new mass extinction. And the goal of Home Dash is to amplify nature's voice by giving us a way to visualize all of these factors happening simultaneously: the water, the air, the soil, the biodiversity, and then optimize human resources for good by channeling all of us humans around the globe, using our profit to connect with each other based on where we are in the world. So this is a map-centric dashboard interface with real-time data and stories that helps us to visualize global challenges, analyze patterns, and design solutions. And it's also a space to learn about success stories and see case studies. So here's another example of the prototype. And if anybody is interested, they can go to the website home-earth and request a demo of the prototype. But here we're looking at a map of the different environmental zones. For example, in pink, those are mangroves. And we're looking at Lagos in Nigeria. And here you can see that the user has clicked on the map, and they're clicking on this orange bar, and it's telling them that in Togo, a country we almost never think about, almost half of the population lives in extreme poverty. And this is data that is being edited by a third party. It's being uploaded into the app in real time. And it's just one example of a data set that somebody could access through this application, which is meant to tell stories and help us connect with each other around the globe as the planet herself. So we're coming to the end of our journey together, and I want to bring us back to this idea of humans and nature being connected as one. And the way that the built environment or the world around us can either remind us of that connection or separate us from that connection. If you'd like, you can take a moment to look around where you are right now in the space that you're in, whether it's a building or a car, or maybe you're outside. And notice if it's a space that's connecting you with nature or separating you, or maybe it's neutral. But this idea that we are not separate from nature is something that sacred geometry can remind us of. So on the screen, we have the Fibonacci sequence and this sacred pattern that has been observed at every single level and scale of life. And we can see how the ancestors who designed, for example, the Greek structures, the temples of old, were naturally using this sense of what is basic. This Fibonacci sequence is an example of a basic connection to harmony and life. So I'd love to leave us here with this question of how can we build a world that reflects this connection to life, that reflects the connection between humans and nature. And I'm sure that each one of us here has ideas and dreams and probably lots of questions about how we can do that. So I'd love to keep in touch if that's something that resonates with you. My information is on the screen. And you can find out more about my work as a visionary architect, both with inner architecture and outer architecture. As I mentioned, I'm also a mindfulness coach at my website, veronica.earth. And you're always welcome to just text me on WhatsApp. That's probably the fastest way to get in touch. And you can check me out on Instagram. That's another great way to connect. And if you want to continue this inquiry about how to build a world that loves itself, how to develop your inner architecture to be the visionary leader of a world that works for all of life, please come to one of our creative empowerment workshops. And we'll be hosting those here with Vitra Academy, a beautiful steward of the Vision Train space. And you can find out more information about that at vitra.academy/creative empowerment. And Mark is asking for the home dash URL. It's home-.earth. I'll put it in the chat for you. So friends, thank you for being here. If you have any questions, now is the time. Feel free to unmute or drop them in the chat. Yeah, Mark, did you want to share?
I was just curious on your first project there. I noticed the roof is made out of bamboo, and I've lived in Costa Rica for a while, and I was wondering what you're going to do to make that survive the weather.
That's a great question. Yeah, we actually ended up covering it with plastic. We were going with a low cost solution. And we found that there's a transparent roofing material that still allows that really beautiful light effect, but preserves, against water damage.
Yeah, because that bamboo wouldn't last more than a year or so.
Bamboo, when properly treated, can last 100 years.
If it's dry. If you keep it dry, you bug proof it and keep it dry. Yeah, it works.
Yeah, absolutely. Our hope was to create a space that didn't so much protect us and isolate us from the elements, but actually connected us to them. And the space.
I got that, but you want it to last too.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Thanks for the question, Mark.
Yeah, I was just curious.
Absolutely. Anybody else? I see Michelle's here. Hello. Tiffany shares, hearing all your visions makes me excited for the future. Perfect. Well, this time has been a successful investment then, Tiffany, because our inspiration is truly divine. It is a renewable resource and is regenerative in and of itself. I'm glad to hear that.
Hi, Veronica.
Hi, Diane.
I want to appreciate you so much. So grateful to dive a little deeper into your work. And I don't have any like singular questions that are surfacing, but there's just so much. There's so much to explore. I'm really excited. And I'm curious about where you are. I'm curious about so much. I don't even know where to dive in. And I like the process that you took us through with the catharsis and creation and detachment is so unexpected as a process. Like that sparked a lot of curiosity. Also really interested in Home Dash and kind of where it is now. I feel like that could be a whole presentation and a whole deep dive because it's very ambitious. Yeah, like how to get all the data for that and how to connect it with different communities and bring awareness so that it's accessible to people. There's so much.
Yeah. Well, I'll answer both of those inquiries. The first one about the process of the catharsis and then the creation and the detachment. That really came from an understanding of the inner architecture of what it means to like create something and a lot of experience around trying to create things with people. I've noticed that the one thing that makes communities fail, the singular greatest threat to any project is people. There's always so many ideas and so much creative potential. Like that is never the problem in my experience. It is always how people actually come together that makes or breaks a project. So that was why we decided to start with catharsis, and it was really bold and brought up a lot. But the community was ultimately very grateful for this chance to dig deep into the past and the shadow. It was really a shadow work process that we initiated. And it had long-term effects. And it came from this idea that we can make a beautiful plan. I've done many of those that go nowhere. And it's a waste of our time and resources, ultimately, if the community itself isn't actually coherent and cohesive. So we really have that process, that opportunity to create coherence and then move into the creative process. And of course, being attached to our creations really messes with that sense of source flowing through, that creative energy itself, the way that the creation wants to take wants to have its own life. It wants to give its unique offering to the world, just like each and every one of us. So if we're attached to it, we're not allowing it to really grow and flow. And then in terms of Home Dash, that absolutely could be its own presentation, and you are in for a treat next week. So we will be having more conversation around that in a smaller offline or private space. So that's a little preview. But Home Dash is currently it's been on pause for a number of months because it hasn't had the family around it that it needs in order to grow into manifestation. The data piece is actually like one of the easier components because there's a movement at large in the agencies and governmental space and nonprofits to use GIS to create data and to create geospatial data as a way to manage resources and the environment, and to use this modality for investigation and research and management. So that's all being standardized. There is absolutely a huge component of it, which is creating data. And at the same time, for me, I find that really exciting because it's a way that we can put boots on the ground and train people to use a very simple technology. GPS is very simple. Everybody has it on their phone, actually. And help, for example, youth and young people feel like they are actively contributing to the mobilization of our human resources to create a new system, to create a new paradigm, to build a truly regenerative society. So I think I touched on all of those invitations.
Yeah, thank you. Is the process that you developed, is that something that was it something that you developed, or did it come from somewhere else?
Yeah, Alex and I developed that deep design process for the immersive community development, master planning. Yeah,
And
ourselves.
that's a service that you continue to offer.
Yes, absolutely. We did it with Diamante Luz for the first time and have continued to offer that as a service for regenerative communities around the world.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Thanks.
Thank you for sharing. Excited to dig deeper.
Yeah, thank you so much for your participation, Diane. It's really good to feel your energy here.
Thank you.
I really appreciated how you spoke about the essential core, like, of the community. When the focus often is on the structure, or let's build this cool thing that we can do cool things in. But if the community doesn't have like a process of nurturing and like taking care of itself, it can easily be distracted by all the ideals of what it should be and then crumble when it's faced with conflict and hardship and all of those things. So that deep design, like going from like, okay, we got the skills to build something beautiful to gather in, but we need the foundation of how we work together and how we get through the challenges. So I really appreciate that as a part of your design. It feels very realistic, where there's a lot that's maybe unrealistic in some ways within visionary culture.
Yeah, thank you for naming that, Amanda. I think that's so important to honor, because a lot of us really do want this thing we're calling a new earth, this new humanity, this new paradigm. And it's amazing to dream and have these visions. And I'm really interested in how are we going to get there, right? And that is like my architecture eye of, okay, what's the structure? What does it take in order to build that round roof with, bamboo? How is such an important question. And it does revolve around the inner resilience. And there's a book called Designing Regenerative Cultures by, I think, Daniel Wall. And at the very, very end, in the last chapter, in the last paragraph, he talks about inner resilience, right? So, which is about how can I, as an individual, participate in communities? And it's such a funny order of operations there, because without that individual, without that cornerstone, that brick in the wall's not going to stand. So we really are invited into this inner resiliency work, and that's why I offer creative empowerment as a way of developing more mindful, loving, aware ways of relating to our creative process, because I think that creates healthy individuals who are able to then create healthy communities who can then come together and create a healthy society. And I think there can be a lot of trepidation about that process, because nobody really likes to look at their shadows and their faults and their struggles and their wounds. But if we don't do that, we're trapping our soul outside of our bodies, and we're keeping ourselves separate from the entirety of ourselves. And so I work offering this process of ensoulment, of bringing the soul back into the body, and being then able to collaborate and connect as my true self, as my whole self. Otherwise, there's a lot of interference that happens, and we end up just re-traumatizing each other and being in these patterns of interference and resistance. And we say that we're moving towards coherence. We say that we're walking as love, but we're not embodying it. We're not really feeling it. And so for me, it's very much about, okay, so we want a sustainable society. We want a regenerative world. How do we embody that as individuals and become together greater than the sum of our parts? But it very much does take at least a critical mass of individuals who are doing that work at an embodied scale, the essential core, as you said, Amanda. Thanks for that.
So can you tell us a little bit about this creative empowerment, these 3 classes that are coming up, and just a little bit of what to expect through that? I mean, I imagine it's a continuation of this. And also in reference to what you just said around the embodied, like bringing the soul back into the body, I feel that I also have noticed a lot of people getting stuck on that part of like processing and shadow, like facing the shadow and all of this stuff. And I'm in a constant state of processing and also getting kind of stuck there. So it's like one thing, it's of course not to ignore it, but on another hand, how do we not get stuck in the muck?
Yeah. Absolutely. It's such an important question, right? Because we don't want to eternally be stuck in the muck. We want to transmute it and transform it. I think the shortest, fastest way to get around that is to have a guide, somebody who's done it, who's moved through and integrated their muck in the process and can support. And yeah, that absolutely can happen if we're not in our center, in mindfulness, because the process, there's sort of a 3-stage process of moving out of trauma, and we recognize it, we process it, like go around in circles, and then we need to reintegrate it and move on. And so I think that integration part is what's missing when we're really in that like processing eternally moment. And of course, our world is so fragmented. There's so little integration. We're constantly being, if you have a smartphone, you're constantly being notified of 17 different applications, and your attention is being pulled eternally in multiple directions. So that's why I teach mindfulness, and creative empowerment is a workshop that's very much based on mindful ways of being in the process of ensoulment, of being in the body and connecting with our soul, which is our visionary component, which connects us. It really is our creative energy. So in the workshop, the 3 different 4-hour classes, we'll be doing meditation, we'll be doing visualization, and we'll be doing journaling. There's a really beautiful, like working as a group energy that we do with a hive mind exercise where we explore the 6 phases to activating your creative power. nurturing it and all of that. So it's an opportunity to awaken your power, to really learn to trust yourself. We do inner child work as well. We practice loving kindness meditation, or metta. And all of that is about creating congruence between our feelings, our thoughts, and our actions. And so something I've noticed as a creative professional is that it's really easy to say, I'm going to do this amazing thing. And then there's the execution of it and the completion of it too. So there are 3 workshops that sort of align with those 3 different phases to support those who are moving through this semester with the Vitra Academy crew. The first workshop in October will be very much about this like inception moment, this like birth. And then we'll move through in November, the same series of exercises, but with a focus on, okay, now I'm executing, I'm moving forward, I'm in this process of birth, of this living art. And then in December, our workshop will be focusing on that completion and release, sort of the death of the creative process, which might be something that we resist a lot. Maybe if we're not able to complete things, it's because we don't want to welcome that death energy into our creative process. So these are all different opportunities to explore creative empowerment, and I hope everybody will feel warmly welcome to join us.
Hi, just wanted to say thanks for the presentation. I'm Michelle. I'm in Ontario right now, and I just heard the train going by. There's a train that goes by like a freight train. It's like choo choo, going like crazy today. Anyway, it's awesome. I think it sounds really interesting, your course, and that is something I could use. At a point, I feel like I get stuck in paintings. I think it's probably like related to some kind of resistance overall of the soul or something. Anyways, I don't know. I need to blab on, but just thank you. And yeah, I'm living right now in like immersed in nature, very connected.
Amazing.
I know, I feel like so beyond blessed. So I'm just trying to be grateful and do something good. So I think, yeah.
Wonderful.
Your workshop, that makes me, I have to check out the details. Thank you.
Yeah, we'd love to support that intention, Michelle, of doing something good, but with the blessings you've been given. I am supporting you energetically in this moment. Thank you for your enthusiastic presence. Beautiful.
Okay, well, I think it's time that we're going to pull into the station here, and we will say goodbye to our online crew, and really appreciate everyone that is going to watch this also in the future, or anyone that joined us also today. And thank you so much, Veronica, for showing up in the fullness with all your experience and all your wisdom, and looking forward to the continued ride with you.
Thank you, Amanda. You're an amazing host and conductor. It's always a delight to connect with this community. Thank you, everyone, for being here, for supporting this vision.
Yay. All right. Choo choo. Bye, live stream.